I'm still awed by the landscape here and really grateful to be here, and just it's been important. I had heard about this, but until you experience it, the affirmation of being chosen by the committee and having this time to devote to your work, and believing that your work is worthwhile and deserving of this time and attention is something that I already feel incredibly grateful for. I write about things that I can't shake or that haunt me to some degree, so if something's really sticking with me or made an impression, even just a particular image that manages to break my heart, I'm then kind of preoccupied with how I could write something that would hopefully reach someone else and move them similarly. If I get it right. Sometimes I've had the experience even here, I mean, it's been so pleasant, but writing about some ugly things and you're reliving them, and it takes a toll. But it's like I grappled with this and it feels important, and maybe that's just the inevitable vanity of a writer, but it's like I want other people to grapple with this. Like, this is haunting me, and I would love to mess people up with the same thing, like have them be troubled by that or contend with it or reevaluate the way that I have been as I like pour over these scenes and images and sentences. Yeah, the piece I'm going to read today is a story inspired by some things I heard from my dad actually growing up, like just little things, little bits of stories that you get and they stick with you, and then you want to try to put it to the page at some point, or I want to try to put it to the page. I've spent a lot of time teaching in jails and prisons, and that's made a really strong impression on me and marked me in a way that I've sometimes felt really moved to try to write around it. And it's really important to approach any subject material, any character that you set out to write, any setting that you try to realize, with an immense respect, not exploit it, not sensationalize it. I think whether it's, we talk about writing as healing or writing as testimony, maybe bearing witness is a way that I remember a professor describing my work that I was happy to hear he read it that way. But no matter how you're writing it, you want it to be moving. That is really the end goal. And it feels challenging to move people with writing in this day and age, in the sense that we're so desensitized and saturated with the information and the material and the stimuli that we're getting. I went to grad school in St. Louis, and I have been working here on a piece about some experiences in the aftermath of Michael Brown's killing and the protests in Ferguson. And we see regularly now, we see clips of people being gunned down by police, like people's lives being lost, and it's just media that we consume. And so the challenge is to do this humanely and thoughtfully and compassionately in a way that will still engage people, because you are competing with a sort of pornographic indulgence in imagery and experience. So sometimes I think writing, I think restraint is really important in writing. I think there's a temptation to indulge really graphic material to provoke a reaction in your readers, but I think that can be really dangerous. So finding restraint and compassion and the right line into something that honors the characters and the setting and the world of your piece and the world that inspired you to write that piece. One thing that I've been trying to figure out or working with is the juxtapositions of different images, different experiences, different realities, because in this saturated environment, these different scenes or realities are thrown against each other in a really interesting way. And so you hope that the things that you're putting up against each other sort of throw some light. I heard the cinematographer and artist Arthur Jaffa talk about affective proximity, so that an image may be familiar, and then when an image is right up against another image, he would do these books of found images, you suddenly, there's another narrative or another way, another entry point into the images. The piece that I'm reading today, my dad spent a summer working in the Borscht Belt, which is a pretty, I've never been there, but from his stories and just a little bit of research, it's a unique, particular sort of cultural space. But then he also is coming from a university where there's an active student movement to free George Jackson, and George Jackson is in prison and ultimately killed in prison. And so just sort of the stakes for different characters, the different realities that people in the same moment are contending with, that's really interesting to me. And I think even that is true to my family experience, because I have family coming from very different places and realities in their life. On any given day, the interactions you have with your family and their stories are so disparate that juxtaposition, something's happening there. And it happens all over the place. I mean, even DC, where I grew up, especially when I was growing up, was famously checkerboard. From block to block, you had a different experience. And I lived on a street that was considered a bit dangerous or rough or whatever you want to say when I was young, but I was in a private school, having a very different school day experience. And then those worlds occasionally collide, or you see your classmates' reaction to your neighborhood or whatever the case may be, and you're just aware of those juxtapositions. So this piece is called Borscht Belt. His father once worked at a restaurant in the Borscht Belt. It's where the Jews started resorts when they weren't welcome elsewhere, his father explained, in the Catskills. He went with a friend after their freshman year at SUNY Albany. There were some other students, the lifers who made a career of the work every summer, the Puerto Rican busboys, and drunks from the city who got rounded up on the Bowery one night at the beginning of the summer and put on a van to the mountains. The drunks did the dishes and took out the trash and earned enough to stay in their cups. The snake pit is what they called the drunks' tenement, and everyone else avoided it. The students and the Puerto Ricans bunked together, and the lifers had the nicest digs, but every day they all ate lunch together. In the kitchen, the Puerto Ricans' favorite joke was when they dropped silverware on the floor. They'd scoop it up quickly and hold it high above their heads. Kosher, they'd call out as they waved the cutlery. Kosher. It was one of the few English words in their repertoire. They weren't so far off. Once his father saw a stooped man in all black under a wide-brimmed hat power walking through the kitchen. The man moved as fast as one can without an honest sprint. His father could have almost dreamed it. "Who was that?" he turned and asked a waiter. "That's the rabbi, making sure we're official." The young waiters worked the front of the ballrooms, and the lifers had the tables closest to the kitchen. Only so much soup was made, and once it was done, your tables went without. Every night, an old lifer set trays on stands along the back wall of the ballroom and filled bowls halfway with soup. Before he served them, he ladled some hot water into each one. "They might say the kitchen makes a lousy soup," he told the busboys, "but they won't say their server didn't take care of them." He'd bring the pot of water out to his trays and do this in plain sight, but diners never seemed to notice. During his father's freshman year, banners strung between columns on campus read "Free George Jackson," but the Panther was gunned down in San Quentin prison yard on August 21st after a hostage situation left 2 white inmates and 3 guards dead. Jackson had a 9mm, but a lot of people said it was a setup. 10 years earlier, at age 18, Jackson was collared for the armed robbery of a gas station that netted him $70. Jackson's sentence, 1 year to life. His father started as a busboy but made waiter before summer was out. Early in the season, as he ran through the ballroom, he collided with a lifer pouring coffee. The look in that lifer's eyes, his father believed himself a dead man. His father's uncle once worked the Borscht Belt as a busboy, and one summer met a wealthy girl who would become his wife. His father had no such luck. The bakery section in the kitchen made dumpsters of bread. At the beginning of a night, everyone lined up to collect it, but rookies like his father never had the chance to get close. Some of the lifers stood on chairs and tossed armfuls of rolls into the clamoring crowd. It was not uncommon for a roll to elude grasps and bounce off shoulders, tumbling to the ground before it was snatched up. In these moments, the kosher joke also applied. And oh, how some of those lifers laughed. His father laughed too, to recall it. His father said here was a life lesson. If you got a little power, you might hurl your mealy dinner rolls wild just to watch people scramble.